Like, if something doesn't change, we got a big problem here. And that could be players, it could be coaches, it could be scheme. So to me, it's sort of more of that than like the bigger picture of what are the Crafts thinking here.
Okay, so speaking of changes, and I understand, Mike, this might be somewhat of a difficult question to answer, but I want to present it anyway. And one of the things I'm concerned about, and it really isn't even an opinion, it's just sort of a fact of the team right now. Going into next year, let's just say they give Gerard Mayo another chance. At best, from where we sit right now, going into next year, that seat for Gerard Mayo is going to be very hot going into the year. How is the team or the Crafts, in your estimation, how are they preparing in the event that next year and the beginning of next year specifically does not go well? How? Because that's going to be a really tough spot if they give Mayo another chance and it starts as bad as it's ended this year.
Yeah, Mark. Like, the seat's gonna be hot for Gerard Mayo if they do that. The seat's gonna be hot for Elliot Wolf, the executive vice president of personnel. That's what they have to measure right now in terms of whatever decision they make. Bottom line facts, right? Because this has not been good enough. So to me, and there's a little bit of hypothetical here, Mark,
Sure.
is if you bring them back, like, you're not running it back with what you have right now. I think everyone can agree with that. There's going to be some level of change. You cannot witness what we saw Saturday in a half full stadium, getting run out of your own stadium 40-7. Like, you're not, there's going to be some level of change, right? And I look at the layers of it. The biggest change would be head coach, vice president of player personnel. The next level would be coordinators, right? And so it's just, what level are you hitting on the change? And if you're telling me that they're bringing back Mayo and Wolf, well, there's going to be other infrastructure around them that looks different than what it does right now, in my opinion, if they go that route. And whoever that is would be part of the infrastructure of, if things go south quickly next year, that they feel like they have something in place to keep it afloat.
Yeah, just because you have to find a way, if you're going to keep Mayo, to buy him a little time to get into next year, or else it's going to be so white hot, it'll be intolerable for the Patriots. Sorry.
So speaking of Elliot Wolf, Mike, the Patriots offseason picture potentially changed a little bit yesterday with the Giants win. They are now sitting in possession of that first overall pick with 1 week to go. Nothing locked up yet, but if they lose that next week, they'll have it. We were debating, do you take Travis Hunter at 1? Do you trade back? I see you're wearing a Colorado sweatshirt this morning. I don't know if that's any indication of how you feel about maybe what you would like to see them do with that pick.
Oh, man, Alex, I feel like I'm in your wheelhouse now. Usually on the draft, I'm so into the season, it's hard for me on the draft. So I'll have to catch up after the season. Obviously, we'll have plenty of time to do it.
Yep.
Look, offensive line has been my mindset. It's clearly not their only need, but to me, like, when I start to break down like where this thing went south this year, that's where I start. And I know what you're going to tell me, Alex, like probably Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell, like that's too rich for number one. Like, we'll sort through that, right, as we go forward. But I just think, to me, like, whatever they do, like, if they can't get the offensive line fixed, we're just going to keep talking about the same stuff that we've been talking about the last 2+ years. It's sort of frustrating, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think both sides of the ball, and this is my personal philosophy, but I think both sides of the ball build from the trenches out. Offensive line, defensive line, and you, especially that the quarterback's already in place. Offensive line, defensive line, go from there.
And Mark, I just want to run something by you just on your last question. Mm-hmm. And because I think if they come back with Mayo and Wolf, I think what they would probably say, and I'm thinking about the Crafts here, and I want to get your opinion on this, is when we measured this out, we didn't surround, and I'm thinking from what the Crafts would be thinking if they made that decision, we didn't support them enough. We didn't have like what the Seahawks had for their young head coach, Mike McDonald, with Leslie Frazier, an experienced sounding board. So we're going to try to right that wrong and give Gerard more support. And I think that's going to be a tough sell to the fans. But if they go that route, and again, it's an if, I want to get your opinion, Mark and Alex, on how you would feel about that. And if that would be enough, get more experience around them. People who have been head coaches, people who have been coordinators before. To me, that's one of the scenarios that I've been envisioning in play.
I would be for it. It would depend on specifically what that move was, but it needs to be, Mike, it needs to be explosive enough or dynamic enough or just big enough to sustain something. If the play early in the year is poor, I just can't imagine the level of vitriol that the team would face. And you could say, oh, ignore the noise. That's easier said than done. I think they need to do something that would give Gerard Mayo some time. So, for example, if they did, let's just say they changed coordinators, both offensive and defensive, that would at least buy Mayo a little time early to work in with these new coordinators, these new coaches that have more experience or whatever they are. And you could buy a little bit of time if it didn't go well early. If you just run it back and they struggle early, I mean, you're looking for answers. There's nowhere to turn. You just have a disaster on your hands, and everybody's going to be coming for you, and that noise is going to become intolerable, similar to what we saw at the beginning of this year when Jacoby Brissett was struggling, and they ended up going to Drake May after 5 weeks when you could have argued if that's what you were going to do, why didn't you go to him? Why didn't you, play him at number one from training camp on so we could get all those reps? They need to be prepared in the event it doesn't go well if they're bringing Mayo back early next year, or else it's going to be a real bad spot.
And Mike, just to go back to your original point there, I think experience, whether it's building around the current head coach, whether it's finding a new head coach, I think experience is the key here. They had Ben McAdoo in that kind of senior advisor role. I think more coaches like that. You look, both coordinators. Well, DeMarcus Covington, first-time defensive coordinator. Van Pelt's been a coordinator, but a first-time play caller. A lot of their positional coaches are in jobs for the first time, the jobs that they're in for the first time. I think when it comes to building up this coaching staff one way or the other, I think experience is the thing above all else that I'd be focused on.
And I wonder, guys, all that being said, like, let's say they go that route. I have asked myself this question as a reporter covering this team. What tangible evidence do we have that Gerard's program is headed in the right direction? You got Drake May, super positive, right? And Mark, I actually give him credit for the way they brought him along. Like, I think, and I might be in the minority on this, I think if they started him in the regular season opener, given what was there, that you could have lost him. We might have not seen the promise. And I realize I might be in the minority there. So I do give him credit for that. And
I'm with you on that, Mike.
And that's Mayo
Disagree.
and Wolf. Like, and that's cool. Like, we can agree to disagree. I like that. I like that we don't always see it the same way. But like, even simple things, Mark and Alex, like before this last game, like they can't even get a simple thing right. Like, Ramondre is not gonna start.
Oh, jeez.
Like when you can't get that right, it shakes your confidence. Like, where are the details? What's going on here? And so it's really that for the Crafts, when they measure this out, like I think it's a tough spot for them right now.
Definitely a tough spot. And that just says to me that it's moving fast for them. Things are moving, even still, week 17, things are still moving too fast. Last question from me, Mike, and I'm not even as concerned about the whole draft pick part of this. How would you play it if you're the Patriots in week 18? Do you play Drake May? Are you worried about his health? What would you do if you were the team?
Oh, good question, Mark. It's actually Mayo's supposed to talk at 9 this morning. It's the one question I had at the top of my list, and I got to figure out, to word it in a good way. There's a part of me that says, why not start Joe Milton, right? And it's not that I think you need to, as a coach, you're going to say, hey, every game we go out there, we play to win. But I think there's a way to do it where you're also learning about your team, and I think get Drake through healthy. If he's healthy and you can sort of look ahead to next year, like, I don't know what else we need to see from Drake or what he would benefit from playing in the game. The more I think it through, maybe play Joe Milton and see what you got, because you're going to have a decision to make Is he ready to be the number 2? And if he plays well in this game, that informs you for your offseason decision making. And in my view, a pretty important decision that you have to make. You got Drake, but who's behind him next year? So that's where I sit right now, Mark. But maybe my thoughts evolve and change as the week goes on.
Sure. As of now, I would also play Joe Milton. I wouldn't go with Drake May. I think we've seen enough. I think he is what he is, and it's a good place where he is at, and we don't want to get him hurt. Mike Reiss, always a pleasure. Mike, Happy New Year.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.